Good morning, everyone. Thank you guys all for coming. This is great because I see a lot of friends, a lot of familiar faces, and if we haven't met yet, I'm excited to meet you and get to know you guys. And although we have a lot of familiar faces and a lot of friends, a lot of you aren't familiar with how I got into business, let alone how I got into personal development, which is what we're talking about today. So I'll start from the beginning, right? I was born and raised here in Salinas. I graduated North Salinas High School, went to Hartnell, and then I transferred to UC Santa Barbara as a philosophy major. Or I dropped out. Isla Vista, if you guys aren't familiar. So eventually, I made my way back to Salinas, where I graduated the Fire Academy in Monterey, MPC. This was in 2010. So the economy had not recovered from '08. There were a lot of layoffs in the cities and so forth and so on. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with '08. Well, I needed a job, so I applied to a local restoration company. We do property damage like water damage, mold, fire, things of that nature. And I got hired on. It was a franchise. I got hired on as a general laborer, so entry-level position. And I loved it. It was great. It was the camaraderie with working alongside the guys, tearing out drywall. It was fun. But I still wanted to be a firefighter. So about a year and a half later, I ended up transferring to Houston. But I got married along the way, and my wife was pregnant, and I was offered a promotion in that restoration company. So I took it, and I was a project manager. Shortly after, I got promoted as an operations manager, where my responsibilities weren't just running the day-to-day operations of the company, but it was also traveling the country after hurricanes, tornadoes, flash floods, mudslides, all these natural disasters. And what I was responsible for was training and mentoring the local franchise owners on how to manage projects that exceeded $250,000. Because now you have consultants and agents and insurance-wise, right? And just a whole bunch of different hands in the pot. And I was blessed with the gift of gab, and it kind of helped. So I was gone about 6 months out of the year, and I had a newborn and a 1.5-year-old at home, and I was still newlywed. So it was kind of rough on my wife and on me being away from my kids. Eventually, this led us to come back home. So now we're in 2018, come back home, and I transferred again as operations manager to that same franchise here locally. But I already knew that I was gonna go into business. I had no doubt in my mind. I had the passion, I had the drive, and I thought I knew everything about restoration, right? Because I've been in it for a decade at this point, just about. So in January of 2021, took me a little bit, but in January of 2021, in spite of my parents, my in-laws, my friends, my family telling me not to leave my job, I went off on my own. That's the problem with being raised middle class, lower middle class. It's about comfort. If you want more, why? Why do you want more, right? Buy a house, get a job. So anyway, I went off on my own. In January, my first month, we produced about $15,000. And when I say we, I mean me and a truck, right? So I thought it was great. This was more money than I have ever made as a W-2 employee. I was happy. I was like, oh, killing it, right? February hit the next month, and the best thing that could have happened, / something that I probably didn't need yet, I'll explain. A friend of mine calls me in Texas and says, hey, we just sustained a hard freeze. I'm sure you guys remember this in 2021. People were dying because it was so cold, pipes were breaking, and ACs were going out, and people were dying of how cold it was over there. It's crazy. But there were hundreds and hundreds of homes where pipes were breaking. So my friend says, come to Texas, pay me a referral fee, and you could do the work. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. So I loaded up my truck. I called one of my friends from Fire Academy, actually, and said, hey, are you busy? He goes, no. So let's go to Texas. So we loaded up our trailer, went out to Texas, and in 3 weeks, I did over $100,000, which was great. Now I made more money than I had made as a W-2 employee. So what did I do? When I went into business, I had no working capital. It was just myself and a dream, and my wife. She held it down. So I used a lot of that as working capital. I invested in some equipment because I knew I was going to scale. I knew I wanted to give back to the community because that was always a thing when I moved back. I wanted to make home better because I'm being born and raised here. So I sponsored the rodeo, and because I wanted those VIP tickets, right? And I bought a boat. Right? I bought a little pontoon boat. And I just took it out last weekend too, it was fun. That pontoon boat represented something. It represented me taking the foot off the gas. I didn't know it yet, but I took the foot off the gas in my drive and all that, because now I made more money than I had made previously. I was raised lower middle class, so I had limiting beliefs, bad money mindset, right? So I'm already thinking like, oh, this is good enough, right? Well, so from March through September, I was doing pretty well. I get work, do the jobs, had some help from a brother and things like that, and get work done, averaging $12,000 to $15,000 a month. I was living the dream. In September, through social media, I stumbled upon a consultant. His name was Shane. He had a lead magnet. Do you guys know what lead magnets are? It's like, hey, enter your email, your phone number, and I'll give you something cool. I fell for it, right? I went ahead and put in my info because I wanted some contracts. He was a restoration contractor turned consultant. I wanted his contracts. That turned into a phone call, and he called me up, right? The initial onboarding call or whatever he calls it. And he's like, hey, Armando, so I know you got the contract. Tell me about you. I'm like, oh, I love talking about myself, right? I'm like, hey, listen, I'm a water god. I know everything about restoration. I could dry out houses. I've been doing it for a decade. Man, this is my first year in business. I'm gonna probably do around 300,000. I went and made 100,000 in Texas during the freeze. I'm kicking ass, taking names. This is great. He stays quiet. He goes, can I tell you something? I'm like, yeah. He goes, man, you're complacent and you're lazy. You should be so much further ahead than you are, given all your experience. I'm like, Inside, I'm like, damn, he's right. but I heard it, right? And then he asked me another question. Why did you go into business? And I said to myself, well, I'm not supposed to say anything about money because that's bad. So I'm like, well, I went into business because I wanted to make up some lost time because I traveled so much and I wanted to be around my kids more, which is true. And I want to, I don't got to be rich, but if I could be comfortable, there's that limiting mindset, bad money mindset. And also make enough to give back to the community, make an impact, that'd be great. He goes, do you know, Armando, that if you made more money, you could write more checks? You could give back more to your community, make a bigger impact. Do you agree? I'm like, yeah, that sounds right. Do you know that if you made more money, you have more options and more freedom and could provide a better life for your family? I said, well, yeah, that sounds about right. He goes, Armando, if you sign up for my program, it's a 4-month program. I will teach you how to grow your business, how to sell more, how to get more referrals through servant marketing. We could talk about that later. And I'll teach you some really cool things about mindset along the way. So I'm like, how much? He goes, $4,000 a month. So it'll be $16,000 program for 4 months. I go, ay, cabrón, no way, dude. Right? But I didn't say that. I said, let me talk to my wife. What does that mean? However, I went home and talked to my wife because I wanted to tell her this guy had the gall to call me lazy. She goes, you kind of are. He had the gall to call me complacent. Yeah, you kind of took the foot off the gas when you bought that pontoon, huh? I should be further ahead. Well, yeah, right? I'm like, man. She goes, what do you think about his teachings, about what he teaches, the way that he teaches? And I said, well, I agree with his philosophy. It's about servant marketing. It's about serving others, and then in return, the byproduct is you get referrals and work. And I'm like, yeah, I'm all about it. He goes, if you align with him on that basic principle, I suggest, my wife's a lot smarter than I am, I suggest that you invest in yourself, put the money down, and do the program. I was so scared. I was terrified. I'm like, man, that's $16,000. Okay, right? I signed it and I started the program. But I didn't just tiptoe in. I dove in head first. I went to his archives. I went through every single file, every single document. I saw his reading list. I saw his vision board. I saw his podcast he listens to. And I started eating, sleeping, and drinking personal development, coupled with weekly coaching calls. And what I did was I ran the play. I implemented. I did the work. I did the assignments. I started door knocking. I started cold calling. I started showing up to marketing events. I started social media marketing, content creation, branding, all this stuff that you're supposed to do. I did everything that was, that I agreed with. I ran the play. In that group, there were about 12 others in that group. And week after week, I watched them ask the exact same questions with no progress. I heard them complain about the program and how expensive it was because they weren't making any money. They weren't getting a return on investment, but they weren't running the play. I outgrew that program, thanked my coach, it ended, and I did get the return on investment that I wanted. It was awesome, grew really, really quick. So when that program ended, what I found most helpful for me was that accountability. I had skin in the game, so I wanted to keep that momentum. So I joined another program. This time it was Ed Milet and Andy Frisella's Arete Syndicate. So I had weekly coaching calls with Ed Milet, Andy Frisella, and I started going to some of their events. And I realized that at these events, I saw a pattern. Everyone would show up to these conferences, right? I know that Remax just got back from Vegas. I know that KW went and saw Tony Robbins. Ooh-wee. I bet he lit the room up. I bet everyone was feeling it, the energy, the excitement. But how many people do you think went home and implemented? Probably some, I hope, right? But I saw a pattern in the events that we would go to. I'd see the same people doing the same thing. Then I realized that in marketing meetings or in local events, I saw people with no judgment, but some people are in the same place that they were 5 years ago. Some people are in the same place they were 2 years ago. So where's the disconnect? I know that my success has come through diving all the way in, auditing my circle, and being completely consumed with personal development. As they say, you're the average of the 5 people that you spend your most time with. So what are you talking about with your group, right? We're talking personal development. Tony, right? Miguel, right? You guys know. In addition to that, I continue to invest in coaching, in mentorship. I do a weekly mastermind call. I do a weekly one-on-one coaching. I do a weekly, sounds like a lot, and it kind of is. But then I also have a local mastermind group, even though we've been on hiatus for a little bit. But the point is we are just completely engulfed in personal development. When I listen to podcasts or audiobooks, it's always on business. It's always on self-development. It's always keeping me on it, right? Because for me personally, that type of accountability, I need that. I need that peer-to-peer mentoring. So following the great Napoleon Hill, if I'm not surrounding myself or sitting down and sharing with like-minded people in the mastermind principle, I'm going to drift. I'm gonna fall off, right? And it's happened before. I haven't been perfect, but I'm able to quickly realign because I'm very, very clear on what I want, what my purpose is, right? And surrounding myself with people that hold me accountable as much as I hold them. So to wrap it up, all I want to ask you guys is, I want to challenge you guys to audit your circles, take inventory in what you're doing and what you're consuming, and invest in yourselves, right? That's all I got right now. Thank you. Oh yeah, if you guys want to listen to some content, I got a podcast called The Ripple Effect. Check it out. Yeah, in all platforms. Happy to entertain any questions. I'm not a guru, but I try. Yes, sir. It's called The Ripple Effect. And it's, Jack actually did the voice intro for it. It's pretty cool. But it's basically it's a podcast dedicated to personal development, but through the eyes of someone that's going through the journey. I'm only in year 4 of business, but through personal development, I've been able to grow my business 100% year after year after year. And it may not happen this year because it gets a little harder, but we're doing pretty well.
You mentioned about serving people in your business. What did that look like for your business?
Yeah, check out the most recent episode. So what's gotten, in addition to the gift of gab, and that's actually ties into it, I learned pretty early on after getting really clear on my purpose. My purpose is tied into education. I love educating my team. I love pouring into them. I love pouring into the community. I love pouring into my friends. And I love listening and taking in, right? I learn best by teaching. So I love teaching. That same principle has been the driving force behind our success and how we sell, right? We don't sell, we serve, right? And we serve through education. Because unfortunately, I'm not similar to you guys, right? Unless you guys have a low-key bakery. Like, I don't bake cookies so I can't give free samples, right? I do water damage, mold, and fire. So people don't want to use us, right? They kind of have to, right? So the best that I could offer is education. I educate them on why they need our services, what happens if they don't use us, without fear mongering, but then also taking it further and educating about the claim process, anything I could do, right? We have great connections within this community itself, and we're able to refer one another to people that could help each other, and that's really it. So that's servant marketing. Yeah.
Well, how detailed is your weekly schedule, and what is your daily?
So like I said, I'm not perfect, right? There's a lot that I have to work on. I love Robin Sharma because he says the health set. Everyone knows mindset, but Robin Sharma talks about health set, heart set, soul set, and mindset, right? So to be perfectly centered, you got to work on all areas of your life. And I'm still lagging on the health set, got to get rid of it, you know what I mean? But I wake up at 4:30 in the morning. I do have a morning routine where I take time to just kind of center myself because, again, investing in yourself, although we were raised, I don't want to say that. I don't want to presume or assume anything, but you got to be a little bit selfish to be selfless. You really do. And so if you spend that time in the morning, that's where my kids are asleep. That's where my wife's doing her thing. I could be a little selfish with my time and fill my cup up so then I could pour onto others, right? And so I wake up, I read, usually like a personal development book, and till I see fit. It doesn't have to be 5 pages, 10 pages or whatever, just read a little bit, get yourself in the right space, have a cup of coffee, and then I get into gratitude journaling. I write all the things I'm grateful for. Gets me again in a good space. And then I meditate or pray, just depending on your beliefs. Then I'm supposed to go work out. I hurt my calf the other day. But then I work out, go for a walk, take my dog, some sort of activity. Move your physiology, move your state, right? And then I do have a time block. So I time block and I do my best to stay consistent. So that means that, from 9 to 10, I'm meeting with team, going out to inspections and lunch at 12. So it's pretty regimented, but consistency's tough, right? And again, that's where my coach right now is like hammering me, right? Just making sure that I stay on track. Yeah.
Do you have a book that changed a lot of your mindset that you recommend?
There's a lot. There's several. I think right off the chute, Think and Grow Rich is huge because a lot of us have a lot of reprogramming to do through auto-suggestion. Well, we've been programmed for me, I spent 38 years, right? Just that I'm trying to shift and reprogram. That's where it all starts. The first step in personal development and in success is really overcoming yourself, right? And through books and whatnot, that's kind of been the key to it. So Think and Grow Rich has been really good. My coach, his name's Christopher Warren, so it's called Dominate Your Day. That's a really good one. There's several, but, yeah.
favorite philosopher?
Favorite philosopher? Aristotle. Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you guys.